earlier panels and on the lunch tables, there were many discussion about the difference between the true cultivation and also the outer forms. I think all three of you are uniquely positioned to, because you have taken on a path that's not your cultural upbringing. How do you get to the core of the practice, both empowered by the cultural heritage and not being bothered by it? What makes it true cultivation instead of just going through the motion? What lies at the heart of the practice? If anyone would like to share.
Can you repeat the question just shortly, like in a short way?
What is the inner process that makes it a practice instead of just a ritual? What happens inside that makes something a spiritual practice? That makes it the sufficient condition for it to become a spiritual practice?
It's something unbreakable. And that unbreakableness is based on devotion to a teacher and understanding of suffering and the need for compassion. And both of those things are unbreakable.
So for me, it's interesting you mentioned about the fact that we came from different traditions. And I mentioned about in Poland, basically you're very influenced by Catholic Church and by Christian beliefs. So for me, it was very interesting to do one exercise for myself to see where I am conditioned, where these conditions came from. And one of the biggest obstacles, I can say, in my practice was the sense that I'm broken, the sense that I'm split somewhere, the sense that is some alienation, the sense of that I am need someone else to fix it because I'm lacking in the very deep sense. And it was very deeply, kind of unconsciously, I can say, rooted. Sometimes manifest as a guilt, for instance, or to have a higher expectations to myself, or whatever I do, I should be done in a particular way. And it's of course a big topic, but big shifts in my consciousness happen when already I understood this is the story. There are different stories, and the story when Buddha gave us is the fact that we are complete, we are lacking nothing. In the beginning we are pure. And the practice of the cultivation, whatever practice we do, is uncovering all these obstacles that can block the access to who we really are. And who we are complete, lacking nothing, and this is our natural state of compassion, joy, and giving, and equanimity. This is who we are. So, this could be my answer.
For me, it was a commitment to something outside of myself, something greater than myself. I've searched my entire life for a theology that could uphold to the test of the unimaginable and the unforgivable. And when I first tripped in the chaplaincy, it started when I was a birth doula, and those of you who have either given birth or who have been there for birth, it's messy, unpredictable. It's full of joy and love, and on the flip side of that, there's grief. And sometimes that grief is more apparent if a mother, family loses that child. So when I moved from being a birth doula to being a chaplain on the NICU, I asked myself, what theology does it take to be able to serve a mother or family who's lost a child? Both literally and figuratively. Like, I looked at the loss of children, you know, across time for different reasons, you know, generations that have been lost through genocide, ethnic cleansing, you know, racial dynamics. So I looked at this in a broader sense as well as what was going on in front of me. And for me, that theology for the unimaginable and unforgivable started within myself. I had to cultivate that within myself and within my own being. And Buddhism and this practice allowed me to do that. So I couldn't just, you know, point to a book or a verse or a saying to offer comfort that would suddenly take away the type of suffering that accompanies, you know, the loss of a child or any other type of grievous loss. You know, I had to look at who I chose to be in relationship to those people and in that room, such that healing could take place.
Another thread that I see in all of your stories is in a conversation last night is about faith. Faith in Dhamma practice, such an important factor and also the most hard, difficult to come by, especially in a context when critical thinking gets such a high premium and we have so many options to try things out. So we'd love to hear, where do you find faith? How does faith grow in you that establish practice as a priority in your life? It doesn't have to be faith in a particular religion, but just to walk on this path and waver in it.
I'm not ready, but I'll go for it. Here's the faith. Okay, so that is an excellent question. For me, faith has never been an option. So and in thinking through the question, I think about the difference between faith and hope, and I really had to separate those things for myself, because within the language of hope, there's a undercurrent of expectation. For me, faith is just a willingness to invest in a process regardless of the outcome. And that is what I feel I must do every day.
Okay, I've got something now. In a lot of my training, I mean, different forms of faith, but from my training, the faith is in that you understand the link between harming or non-virtuous activity and the creation of suffering, and harming activity in the creation of suffering, non-harming activity in the creation of happiness. That's fundamental to a Buddhist view, in my training anyway. And that's the faith. You have to have faith in that relationship, according to many of the texts we study. So I know you think, and we can apply the word faith to many things, obviously faith in the Buddha and faith in the Sangha, but it's very important to have the right view, the faith that harming leads to suffering, non-harming leads to happiness.
Yeah, the faith is a very interesting word. I usually don't use the faith because it's so many baggage on it. I like the words confidence or trust, for instance. And because I think this is coming from this place, especially the Buddha's teaching. And we were saying that the faith or confidence has a kind of three elements. The one is the truly belief in myself. As someone who is capable to do this work, is capable to kind of transform deeply myself. The second, I can say, this is kind of confidence in the teaching, on these recipes of the Buddha who gave us, or teachers, or the wise ones. And the next one is the kind of confidence in the Buddha himself as an awakened teacher who gave us these formulas. And what for me, the confidence not coming, it's interesting how it's happening, but it's coming from this kind of deep investigating of the teaching. And I really like this word, the chanda in the Pali term, what is kind of wholesome desire. And usually what's how our heart responds is kind of give rise this, yes, it's wonderful, I want to do it, I want to try it out. So it's kind of natural inner calling, I can say, to go for it. And it naturally appears as a kind of wholesome emotion to try out. And when I test out this teaching, I can see the results. In the moment of let go, when I can check my kind of biochemical inner being, my body and mind feels it helps. This is something what heals. And any moment of let go, my confidence or trust increased slowly. So I think I can say that for me, the trust or confidence, this is kind of step-by-step process. But I'm still kind of, I make a hypothesis, I do, it's very scientific in some sense. I check how it works, and I kind of see how it affects me. And make next step. So this is kind of very lively, organic feeling, confidence or faith.
Going back to Pema, Deki, you have a 13-year-old son, and at the same time you also help the children in Bhutan, special needs children. So wondering, and you have become a nun after your biological son was born. How has your love for children changed, evolved, or expanded since you started to practice, now that you have so many children, your own son and these kids in Bhutan?
Yeah, in fact, I spotted a couple of people asleep in the audience, and you feel that feeling of the mother that, they're asleep now, they're peaceful. I just spotted you, but I'm not going to look at you. Okay, I'm just going to look at the ceiling. I mean, we all, through many lifetimes, have had the experience of being a mother and being a child, many limitless lifetimes. So that's an understanding we can all call on through our practice. I think that, obviously I'm celibate now, right? So I'm living under vows, but I'm very grateful that I had a child before I was instructed to become a nun, because I believe that placing this some other being's life so completely in front of your own, without question, pushing you beyond anything you thought you could do, like survive without sleep, and they throw up on you, and they cry, and you can't stop it, and pretty much all of the parameters of patience and generosity and enthusiastic diligence, all of these practices you can learn very quickly as a parent. And they're not theoretical, they're visceral. They're at 4 in the morning, And so I feel, whilst we've all been mothers many, many lifetimes, I really honor that, because I think it is, in many ways, a deep spiritual path in its own right. I'd say that, I've forgotten what your question was. So that's what I'm going to say.
Thank you. And also for Breeshia, you are kind of representing our generation under 30, and in your journey of practice, learning from your teachers, some of whom are also here, do you think there are ways that our generation just practice differently, or we work differently, that the teaching needs to either should be evolved, or we just should know how we as how we grew up, we tend to practice. Any patterns you see in the young people that you work with?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure in terms of how we practice differently. I do work with American millennials in my spare time, and that's and being a millennial myself, that is a very interesting and at times tough age group to work in because of the type of grief we've experienced in terms of the boom of technology, what the expectations were for previous generations versus our reality, how we're coping with that, with our connection through technology. So I think that frequently what I see in working with millennials is that what we not just what we expect from life, but what we might expect from the practice is quite different from the reality. And given that we can frequently expect instant or concrete results, it can be quite frustrating. And working with folks such that they invest in themselves and commit to the practice outside of it, regardless of their expectations, has been difficult. But I guess all in all, it's I don't feel that I can say that millennials in general face a particular hardship compared to previous generations. Like, I think that this is just a reality of where we are and who we are, and the next generation will have their own thing. You know, previous generations had their thing, and we make it work with the practice, however it works.
And on our walking up the stage, Pema Deki saw on this little notebook something that I wrote as a reminder for me to come back to practice and know that in our journeys, there's always the dark night of the soul, where there are times that we just don't want to do that sit in the evening. Are there almost like personal mantras, or that post-it note you have on your wall that helps to bring you back? And during in that dark night of the soul, that keeps you come back to the practice. That's your personal mantra to power through, see the light. Or maybe I can just read what's on the cover of my notebook. On the front it says, 降伏其心，善用其心. To tame and train the mind and to use the heart and mind skillfully. That's kind of what the core of what real practice means for me at this stage. So on my little notebook, I write it down as a reminder every time I see it. I check, am I doing that work? Am I working on the heart and mind? So for you, is there that kind of anchor or a little hack or a little trick that helps you to remind you what is real practice?
Yeah, I require all my students to learn the 4 immeasurables off by heart in order that they can pull them out in emergency situations. And then there's one quote, which is the Bodhisattva never lets the loving kindness for all beings leave their mind for 1 second. That's a helpful one for me also, yeah.
For me, it's simple. Everything is okay. Whatever come out, and have the reminder to have this. It's nothing going on really. And what's really helped me is practice of loving kindness. This is loving kindness, metta practice. But metta practice in very kind of, I can say, somehow emotional level. And I can connect my heart with this practice and feel it deeply in my whole body and hold it. So in this field, whatever I interact is a sense of generosity, connection, and well-being, and joy, and everything is okay. Sense.
I really appreciate this question, and the line about the dark night of the soul, which I could really empathize with. For me, Zazen in practice has never brought me happiness, but it's brought me groundedness, and there's been a distinct difference. And, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, my mind and emotions and just being in general never let me go too long without practice. I mean, it's something I have to, you know, continue to return to one way or another. If I slip, if I get too busy, like I have to bring myself back to it in order to feel grounded, in order to be the person that I feel that I'm called to be, in order to do the work and the things that I do. But it's very frequently, it can be unsettling and bring up all kinds of things, especially if I'm paying attention, you know, especially if I'm looking at the suffering of others and attended to my own suffering. You know, I don't always feel great after I get up from sitting zazen. But I do feel grounded and equipped to stand firm in that reality and to venture in that reality with other people. And there are times, and I do experience a dark night of the soul. Just had one recently. And for that, I am very thankful for teachers and community, which is why I personally don't treat my personal practice as a solitary pursuit. It is something I have to do within community of others, even if I don't get to make it to a sitting that week, you know, being able to reach out to teachers, being able to meet koans, or to have access to books of teachers who I can turn to, who have undoubtedly experienced similar things. That's been very helpful.
And I think that's the community is a great note to remind, although our panel topic is how to deepen our personal practice, but this is just as much communal, be it in intimate relationship or relationship with a teacher or with our family. It's very much, the personal practice is about community. And as we have practiced for these past 2 days in community, hope we have all gathered that reinvigoration so that we go back on Monday with more faith in our path. So thanks to our panelists, and thank you all.